We've been doing these yearly countdowns really since the beginning of this channel. I mean, one of our earliest episodes was when I gave you my top 10 for 1965. Then periodically we've been going through the years. Here we are at 1988. And I got to say, this is probably the weakest year yet that I have, at least for me, that I've covered. Now, that's not to please watch because there's some great albums to talk about. There are some really great albums here. I'm just saying, as a whole, looking at everything out this year, that for me, this may be the weakest year yet since 1965. So, with that, now that I've pumped you up for this video, let's do 1988. Hey guys, welcome to Amity Tracks, and welcome to 1988. Interesting stuff going on around the world in 88. We have an election here in the United States. George H.W. Bush defeats Michael Dukakis and becomes president. The INF Treaty is ratified between the United States and the Soviet Union. The Soviets begin their withdrawal from Afghanistan, kind of their own Vietnam experience, right? Libyan terrorists blow up the Pan Am jet over Lockerbie, Scotland. Archaeologists uncover the original Globe Theatre in London. That's cool. Stephen Hawking publishes A Brief History of Time. And the winner of Best Picture that year is the... Oh, sorry. Is the... The Last Emperor is the winner of Best Picture that year. All right. Well, here we go. You know how this works by now, I assume. I give you my favorite 10 albums ranked for that year. Then we can throw in some honorable mentions at the end. And then, of course, in the comments, you guys let loose. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What would your rankings be? What did you love in 88? You know how this works. All right. So, I was wondering when I was going to... I'll just say this at the outset. There are some really important albums that came out this year that I'm not a fan of. But also, I'm not an idiot. So at least I don't think so. I've got to acknowledge, Sonic Youth, Jane's Addiction, My Bloody Valentine. They all released some pretty significant records. That is just an area, I guess a genre, whatever you want to call it, that I've never really gotten into. I kind of tried here and there. Maybe I should try again. I don't know if I've tried hard enough. But so you're not going to see those in my list. But again, I have to acknowledge their presence in this year, obviously. But anyway, here is my list. So here we go. Coming in at number 10. Now this is cool because she has gotten her profile has gotten pretty big this last year due to what was it, Luke Combs having a huge country hit with her song that was on this record. But I'm talking about the original song. The song is Fast Car, the artist is Tracy Chapman, and the album is Tracy Chapman, her debut. Kind of a stunner. Man, this came out of, you got to think about what else is going on in 88 musically, right? And this came out of nowhere, this thoughtful singer-songwriter playing a lot of acoustic guitar. This would have felt at home in the 70s, but 1988. Well, man, what a breath of fresh air this was. Incredible talent. And again, I'm so happy that she's getting a ton of attention again for her amazing song, Fast Car. But that's just one great song on this album. This whole album is great. It really is. She didn't keep her I remember when this came out, people were talking about her like she was going to be huge for, decades. She still, put out music after this, but never kind of got the attention that she got, for her debut. But it's a remarkable debut. So yeah, Tracy Chapman's debut I got in at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is a fun album. People still have a lot of fondness for this album. I do too, and it's fine. And they did it right. This, of course, is one of the super groups of all super groups. I have this one on CD. I'd like to grab this on vinyl at some point, but the Traveling Wilburys, right? Volume 1, name of the album. And as most of you know, a supergroup comprising of Bob Dylan, Jeff Lynne from ELO, Tom Petty, Roy Orbison, and George Harrison. Yeah, hell of a supergroup. Why this works so well is they're very relaxed about it. I mean, these one, you can tell these guys kind of musically are compatible. Although I thought it was very interesting, Roy Orbison in the mix. But but these guys are very compatible musically. Um, a lot of them influenced each other, and and several of there's several combinations of people in this group who have kind of had a long history of doing stuff together before this. So again, they kind of knew each other, were comfortable with each other, and the songs are fun, but it's not like, ooh, Bob Dylan's gonna write an important song. It's just they're relaxed and having fun, and that's why this thing works. Great song, very generous to each other, of course, trading back and forth. I like it in the songs where they even kind of trade verses and stuff like that. But uh congratulations. Anyway, they can't all be good, right? But great album, great album. Roy Orbison, especially. I love his presence on here. Man, he was still awesome right up to the end. All right. Well, there you go. Coming in at number 8, I got another one on CD here. We've got Green from REM. And this is an interesting. This is still sort of a, I don't know, interesting record in their discography. I think because you got you got something like Pop Song '89, Stand, which is fun. I don't mind. Some people, I don't mind Stand. But then you got these something like World Leader Pretend, which I think is just stunning. It's so great. Orange Crush rocks. So it's it's an eclectic album. They kind of hitting some different stylistic points, from their middle to later period. Anyway, I saw, I think that I've seen them twice. I saw REM twice. I think the first time I saw them was on this tour. I think it was, yeah, I think it was. It was the Green Tour. So anyway, that was a great show. All right. What do we got next? Yeah, number 7. Now, number 7 is a record that, has been seen over time. Actually, it was huge. It's a huge success when it came out. But after that, I think his reputation, has kind of soiled a bit. It was seen as kind of, I don't call it a failure, but sort of maybe a misstep, but an essential misstep because of this record and sort of the dead end that this record took this band into in a couple of years in the future. From 1988, they would make a stunning reinvention of themselves, which I don't think this would have happened if they hadn't kind of had this, what is considered a misstep. You take all of that aside, this record, I mean, it's spotty, but what's great, I think, really is pretty great. So I've talked about it enough, right? Let me show it to you. U2, Rattle and Hum, right? The double album, some live material, some studio material, some of it new material, some of it older material, like live renditions of some of their older songs, but then also new songs that they wrote for this. Some covers. It's kind of an interesting little hodgepodge, but the reason this is so notorious isn't so much because of the album; it's because of the documentary film that was released in theaters that this accompanied. That that sort of lacking some self-awareness, taking themselves very seriously. And like I said, after that, they would definitely shift gears. But yeah, you just take the album itself and some of the highlights on this record. It's some of their great songs. Here they are in I Was There. Here they are in Sun Studio recording. They self-consciously recorded. This is their America album, right? Where they're trying to find America. Oh, you know what's cool? Because I went to Memphis this summer and toured Sun Studios. It was amazing. The drum kit, Larry Mullen's drum kit you see right here, is still in that room. I guess he donated it, whatever, left it to Sun Studios. So you go tour this room, right? It's the same room where Elvis recorded and everything else. You go into that room, and Larry Mullen's drum kit is still there from the Rattle and Hum sessions. That's kind of cool. Anyway, what's good? What's good? Desire was great, great rock song. Um, I like their kind of gospel choir version. If I still haven't found what I'm looking for, Silver and Gold. Although the Play the Blues Edge, one of the most unbluesy bands ever. But anyway, um, Silver and Gold's a great song. That was a great B-side from Joshua Tree. Angel of Harlem, great song. And then All I Want Is You is the classic off of here. So yeah, there's definitely some U2 keepers here. And like I said, this was essential for Octane Baby and everything after to come, I think, because they realized uh, how self anyway. Um, Number six. This album is probably not one that people talk about very much anymore. I really am. This guy is incredibly talented. He had a lot of commercial success early on. I think I forget which year, but maybe 2 years or whatever year it was. Fairly recently, I covered his debut. This is his second record, and I think it just continues in that vein. Um, he has since, not been nearly as commercially successful, but I think gone on to do a lot of very interesting kind of experimental things. This is still when he's very much kind of hitting the pop charts. I love this record though. Talking about Bruce Hornsby in the Range, he still has his band with him at this point. Scenes from the South Side. Now it's actually a bit more produced and smoother than even the way it is was. But I just think, Look Out Any Window, The Valley Road, The Road Not Taken, Show Goes On. I just some fantastic, just beautiful song, wonderful piano playing. I mean, he has a very distinct piano style, right? That's sort of got him, painted him into a corner eventually, and that's when he sort of tried to. I remember very distinctly. It wasn't after this one. I think it was after his third album, and then he wrote "The End of the Innocents" for uh, Don Henley, which is a huge hit for Don Henley, but it has a very Bruce Hornsby sound. Where Bruce Hornsby saying like, even I got sick of my sound, So then he very much changed it after that. So I admire. It's kind of cool. But anyway, I loved his original sound though. It was just kind of everywhere for a while. All right, number 5. Got this one on CD. Someone people love to hate nowadays, right? But I mean, you can't deny the guy's talent. I've got Morrissey, Viva Hate. One of his great records. Every Day is like Sunday is on here. Um, Late Night Maudlin Street, I've always really liked. Suede Head, of course. Break Up the Family, I think was great. Hairdresser on Fire. Yeah, man, just top shelf Morrissey here, I say. All right, coming in number 4. Now I've talked about this record before. Where when we did a week a while back on this band, and I sung the praises of this album. This album tanked when it came out. It's one of their least successful records. It got trashed by critics and fans alike at the time. But it's very interesting. It's one of those records who, that over time people have reassessed. And now there are a lot of people, and include me in that, who really admire it. Talking about Duran Duran's Big Thing. Really good record. And it's kind of cool how it's organized here. One side kind of has sort of the more pop stuff, and then the other side is way more kind of moody and experimental, the kind of Arcadia type stuff. But just really good, and like I said, I don't know, just listening to it now, it's like I don't get the hate when it came out, because man, it's a good listen. It's a good listen. I Don't Want Your Love and All I Want Is were the singles. I think are really cool singles, actually. But man, yeah, just that second side, especially the real more moody side, I think it's gorgeous. So there you go. All right, getting into the top three. I admire the hell out of this guy in my three slot. He sang for one of the biggest bands ever. When that band ended, went on his solo career, which has been long and also very rewarding. And one of the reasons I admire him is he's one of those guys. Robbie Robertson's another one. Sting is another one. At least Sting initially. Who, when they departed from their famous band, didn't just try and recreate that sound. I mean, really went into different directions. This is probably my favorite album of this guy, solo album, but he's got a lot of great solo material. Robert Plant with Now and Zen. Yeah, this is great. I mean, I don't know, you listen to it now, it's very late 80s. I mean, there's a lot of synthesizer, a lot of 80s sound and production, but the songs are really good. Really good. Heaven Knows was a fantastic single. But yeah, even in these deeper album cuts like Ship of Fools, Helen of Troy, I think are fantastic. So this is a really great record. And it's kind of, I remember them talking about it at the time. And it's true. I think Plant was distanced enough from Led Zeppelin by this point to where he felt comfortable with that legacy and maybe even playing with it a little bit. Jimmy Page guests on a few of these tracks, which is cool. And even on Tall Cool One, right? I think it's Tall Cool One, yeah, where he even samples old Zeppelin songs in kind of, sort of a cheeky way, but it's cool. Yeah, anyway, this is a great record. Really great record. All right. Number two. Now, I have mentioned this guy a lot. I think he's one of the greatest musicians alive. Genius, really. Brilliant on his instrument. You probably, if you know of this guy, you probably know of Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, right? Well, this is a record prior to the Flecktones, and it's called Drive. So Bela Fleck Drive. And this is just stone cold straight, like instrumental bluegrass, but of the highest order. The little term newgrass was coined at the time. So this is sort of new, kind of younger group of musicians experimenting, incredibly proficient, like just technically, but also very creative, stretching the bounds. And yeah, I mean, if you look at it was so if you're familiar with Bela Fleck at all, jazz and it just defies categories, just experiments with all this stuff, and takes the banjo, which is kind of considered this kind of old timey, like I said, bluegrass instrument, into all these new modern directions. But Bela Fleck also, as you might imagine, hell of a bluegrass player, you know, and it's like that's what this album. I've always viewed this album as sort of like him basically declaring, like, yes, I can do all this other amazing stuff, but just so you know, I can do bluegrass with the best of them, and that's kind of what this is. It's an astounding record. What's that? Sanctuary? God, that song. But yeah, if you look at the players he has with him, I mean, it's like all stars of kind of this newgrass movement at the time. Sam Bush, Jerry Douglas, Stuart Duncan, Mark O'Connor, Tony Rice, Mark Schatz. I mean, just amazing musicians all. So there you go. That's my number two. And my number one record in 1988. Love this record. Admire the hell out of this guy. I am going to do a ranking video on this guy at some point. Haven't got to him yet, but we will. This is one of, I'm not going to tell you if it is, but it's one of my favorites of this guy. And it's interesting because it's not a record that is cited by critics and a lot of people as one of his best. I just really love it though. Randy Newman, Land of Dreams. Great record, eclectic record for him. I mean, he really kind of goes more into more mainstream kind of rock pop sounds. It's not that kind of Randy Newman sound that you get on so many of his records. I guess that's one reason I like it. As much as I love a lot of his records, sometimes they are a little samey, like stylistic wise. This one actually is very, very diverse in the sound. And I think it's a great set of songs too. Also, Mark Knopfler is all over this thing. He produces part of it, plays guitar on, I guess, most of it. And you can hear Knopfler's guitar all over this thing. And for me, that is always a plus. But yeah, this is just so good, so good. It starts off, the first three songs are kind of a related trilogy. And they're about as autobiographical as Randy Newman ever got. And they're all three just stunners to me, especially the opener, Dixie Flyer. Beautiful piano line. God, what a great. It's talking about, yeah, as a youth being brought to New Orleans, land of dreams, right? And then New Orleans wins the war. It's a quirky song, sort of featuring, sort of unique attitudes of New Orleans. And Four Eyes, kind of growing up experiences. It's kind of interesting. It would have been interesting if he had stuck with that theme, sort of just creating this autobiography. But he kind of leaves it, and the rest of it is just sort of a set of songs. Really good song. It's Money That Matters was kind of the hit off of here. Love that song. Killer Mark Knopfler guitar riff. Listen to that. It's like, yeah, that's Knopfler. It's so good. And then, of course, you have the closer, I Want You to Hurt Like I Do, which was sort of his very interesting, supposedly like response to We Are the World and USA for Africa and all. It's Randy Newman, right? Anyway, fascinating to me. I just love this record. I've listened to it a lot, really since it came out, and I love it. Like I say, you look at other rankings of Randy Newman, it's often maybe in the middle of the pack or near the end, but it won't be for me. All right, real quick, some honorable mentions here. Keith Richards releases his solo debut, Talk Is Cheap. You know much about the Rolling Stones, the 80s were not a great decade for them as far as getting along and all that. Mick Jagger was much more focused on his solo aspirations. And finally, Keith Richards had just said, to hell with it, I'll put out my own solo album. And then he puts out what many consider to be, basically one of the best Stonesy sounding records of the whole decade. Just sounds like a great Stones record. But it's awesome. It's a really good record. Here's one interesting. The Mission UK. I think at some point didn't they drop the UK? Maybe just be the Mission. I don't remember. I don't know. I don't have a lot of their other stuff. But this is Children, the Mission UK, their album Children. I saw them. So in 1988, I saw Robert Plant. I went to a Robert Plant show, and I went to a Jimmy Page show. Not together, of course, separate. And they opened for one. I don't remember who it was. It was either Page or Plant. I don't remember. But anyway, the Mission UK opened for one of them. Never heard of them, but I remember being just really impressed with their set, their opening set. And this was the record that they were, I think, promoting at the time. So I bought it. I like it. It's a little, I don't know, sort of, very melodramatic, kind of gothy, a little bit, over dramatic in some places, but I don't know, some good songs on there still. Kind of Cure-ish, but a little less nuanced than the Cure. Anyway, I like it. Okay, what else we got here? Talking Heads put out their final record, Naked, which I'm a fan of. I actually really like Naked. Very much musically previews some of the world music explorations that David Byrne would go on, of course. Pretty landmark year for rap. Now, I'm not a huge rap fan, but I admire some of it, and these are really significant, landmark records that you cannot deny. Of course, NWA puts out Straight Outta Compton that year, and then Public Enemy puts It Takes It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. So yeah, these two pretty landmark records in that genre. What else? Okay, yeah, the rest of them editor can throw up here. I do have these on CD, but I've got some of my CDs buried in boxes, and when you have editor, he can just throw them up there, so I don't have to dig them out, right? The Church put out Starfish, which I believe, now that I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, I believe that's the one with Under the Milky Way on it, which is probably their biggest hit in the United States, at least. Great song. I love The Church, actually, really do. Um, let's see what else. Metallica and Justice for All comes out. Steve Earle puts out Copperhead Road. It's pretty awesome. And Jeff Healey, the Jeff Healey Band, their debut See the Light. I don't know if you knew much about Jeff Healey. He was a blind, deceased now, but he was a blind sort of, guitar prodigy. See the Light, the name of his debut. I remember when that came out, that made kind of a big stir in guitar community. That was pretty awesome. And the fact that the dude was blind, right? And he played it he kind of put it on his lap and kind of did a lot of like fingering like this. That's how he played it. That's cool. Anyway, well, there you go. That's my 1988. What do you guys think? Let's talk 88 in the comments. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What did I leave out? Are you gonna come down on me too hard for not talking about Sonic Youth and Jane's Addiction and My Bloody Valentine? Hey, at least I acknowledge it. Right? All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, like the videos, share the videos. All of that helps us out, and we'll see you next time on Amity Tracks.